This is Atomic Shinobi and today I'm going to narrate what if Naruto accidentally traveled back in time with Rinne Sharingan. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
There were two figures standing a few feet apart, each staring at the other with rippled eyes of purple. The first figure was a taller man with waist-length black spiky hair that nearly covered his right eye. He had a big fan on his back and was dressed in red metal armor in the samurai style. The second figure was of average height, with his bangs framing his face and his unkempt blonde spikes nearly reaching his shoulders. Each cheek bore 3 whisker marks. He was wearing a white cloak with black flames at the sleeves' ends and at the bottom. It was clear that a fierce battle had taken place here because the area surrounding the two figures was totally destroyed. Another figure was lying nearby the man in the white cloak. This man wore a light purple shirt, dark purple pants, and a light purple rope belt tied in a bow on his back. He had jet black hair in the shape of a duck. A closer look would reveal that this man had a rather large hole in the left side of his chest and that his left arm was missing just above the elbow. "Sasuke," the man in the cloak said, almost in a whisper, looking at the wounds on his longtime friend. Sasuke appeared to have just a few minutes left, if he was lucky. Sasuke gave a feeble reply before coughing up some blood, saying, "Naruto, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to help you out in the end. I guess we didn't need to fight to see who the strongest was after all." He concluded before he had a coughing fit, spitting up a lot of blood and closing his eyes for the last time. "Now we know that you were the best choice after all. Just promise me that you will kill Madara and take care of Sakura like a good Hokage should." Tears started streaming down Naruto's face, and he allowed his lips to curl into a tiny smile. He turned back to Madara and nearly whispered, "I promise Sasuke, and I never go back on my word." He was dancing wildly around his form as he turned, a coat of yellow chakra covering him. 3 tomo appeared on each ring, causing the ripples in his eyes to turn blood red. A bar passed through the inner circle, which became a cat-like slit. His face was now framed by bangs that stood straight up, resembling horns emerging from his forehead. As he vanished from his location, Naruto screamed, "Madara Uchiha! This has gone on long enough. You will die here today." The ground exploded beneath him due to the power he exuded. Madara barely managed to get his fan off his back in time to deflect a Naruto punch. Both Madara and Naruto were thrown several feet backwards by the punch's force. Naruto stopped on Dragon, and Madara stopped on Tiger as both men started to blur through hand seals. Kaden, Great Fire Annihilation, and Ration, Grand Lightning Devastation, were shouted simultaneously by Madara and Naruto. Madara released a wave of fire from his mouth, while Naruto threw a massive wall of lightning from his hands. After a brief struggle for control in the middle, the two techniques exploded and cancelled each other out. Madara had to roll sideways to avoid a screeching ball of energy with 4 blades wrapping around it before the smoke had even had a chance to settle. Madara flew past the attack, which dispersed in the air. Madara barely had time to think about it before a foot struck his face with such force that it should have broken his neck. After being thrown a few feet back, he crashed through a big tree and rolled to the ground. He slowly raised himself back up to his knee in time to see Naruto again in front of him. As he threw his knee forward, Naruto caught Madara by the hair and drew him in. He then met Madara's face with a gratifying crack, and launched him into the air. Before his right arm was covered in lightning, Naruto leapt to follow him until he peaked and started to fall again. Once more, Naruto swung his fist in Madara's face, and when it struck her, he smiled. Naruto shouted, "Raiden! Fist of the Thunder God!" as Madara was struck by a lightning bolt and hurled hurtling to the ground. Madara's battered body was surrounded by a large crater after he crashed into the ground. With his arms folded, Naruto floated back to the ground gently. He glanced at Madara's battered body and smiled before reaching out his right arm. Naruto exclaimed, "Rasenbokyaku! Spiraling Oblivion!" as a black ball materialized in his hand and then shrank to the size of a gumball. Out of his hand, the ball soared upward and raced in Madara's direction. Madara gazed up at the ball of certain death, which was encroaching on him with frightening speed. His Rinnegan eyes suddenly pulsed with chakra, glowing a bright purple. "If that hits me, I'm done for, but I can't dodge it in my current state. I guess I only have one option," he thought. Madara said, "Jiku Kuchiku.con. Space. Time Destroyer." Before the two clashed and started battling for supremacy, a tiny ripple appeared in the air ahead of Naruto's attack. Before Naruto's Rasenbokyaku multiplied several times its initial size and exploded back towards him, enveloping him in a white light and lifting him several feet into the air, it seemed like a stalemate. From where he was, He could see his attack power pierce Madara's defense, strike him squarely in the chest, and then collapse, dragging Madara and a few feet of earth into the tiny black hole where they would never be seen again. A tiny smile appeared on Naruto's face. His final thought before everything went dark and the white light grew even brighter was, "It's finally over." Suddenly, Naruto's eyes opened and he started to look around. Madara's death was the last thing he recalled before everything went dark. He soon realized that he was no longer on the devastated battlefield, but rather appeared to be at Konoha's Shinobi Academy. Once the initial shock subsided, he became aware that he was sitting on the swing he had grown accustomed to using each day following the academy. He also quickly realized that his cloak was missing and that his body felt rather weak. Before he had time to think about it, he heard conversation and turned to see a number of children proudly displaying their new hite, attached to their parents across the field. As Naruto observed the interactions between the families, he thought, it looks like the class just graduated. Something weird is going on here. When he saw Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji leave the class with free hite, atesh, the situation only became more bizarre. Once more, Naruto didn't have much time to think about this before he heard a figure approaching from behind. He spun around in time to see Mizuki, his gray-haired academy teacher. Naruto thought to himself, also weird. I'm sure he is dead. Have I traveled back in time? Before Mizuki's words were heard. Hello, Naruto. I'm sorry you didn't graduate today, but I want to give you another chance because I see potential in you. Recalling his second chance, in which he was duped into stealing the scroll of seals, Naruto thought to himself, this I definitely remember. He reasoned that he would comply with Mizuki for the time being and then work things out later. A second chance, Mizuki. Sensei, really? What am I supposed to do? Naruto spoke in a childlike tone. It's as easy as slinking into the Hokage Tower, stealing a fake scroll, and bringing it to me at midnight in the woods outside the village. With a smile on his face, Mizuki remarked, almost too easy. If you are able to obtain the scroll without being caught, you pass and you are officially a genin. Given that Mizuki had attempted to murder him and his favorite teacher, Iruka, the first time this had happened, Naruto was obviously aware of Mizuki's true motivations and was barely able to control his rage. That's too easy. In no time, I'll be a genin. Naruto pumped his fist in the air and yelled. Before vanishing in a whirl of leaves, Mizuki said softly, remember, meet me outside the village at midnight, and don't be late. Shush. Don't tell anyone or you'll blow your cover and fail the mission. For a few more minutes, Naruto sat on the swing, thinking about everything that had happened in the last few minutes. 1 minute, he was killing Madara Uchiha and bringing the 4th grade Shinobi War to an end. The next, he had just failed his graduation exam. He wasn't sure what had happened, but he knew it was real. He couldn't detect a genjutsu, and he had somehow traveled back in time by almost 5 years. He immediately decided that he needed to inform the Hokage of the situation, so he headed toward the tower to talk to Hiruzen. When he reached the tower, he hurried up the stairs until he reached the Hokage's office door, knocked a few times, and then heard Hiruzen say, "You may enter." "Hey Jiji." Naruto waved and smiled as he opened the door and approached Hiruzen's desk. "Hello, Naruto. What has brought you here?" Hiruzen pulled out his pipe and looked up from his paperwork to respond. Naruto turned to face the Anbu concealed in the room's corner and remarked, "I have a few things we need to talk about, in private." After filling his pipe and lighting it, Hiruzen inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with smoke. "Will you give us a minute?" "So Naruto, what is it that you wanted to talk about?" He said to what seemed to be no one before 4 figures suddenly materialized, nodded, and departed the room. Taking a deep breath, Naruto considered how he could convincingly explain this to Hiruzen. "Well, I know you're not gonna believe this, but I somehow managed to travel back in time." Naruto laughed, which made Hiruzen give him a stern look. "This is too far for a practical joke, Naruto. For a joke, you forced me to send my Anbu out of the room?" Hiruzen spoke in a firm tone. Knowing that the elderly Hokage would react in that way, Naruto didn't falter under his gaze. "Jiji, I'm being honest with you. I may have just woken up an hour ago. In almost 5 years, I was engaged in combat with Madara Uchiha in the 4th Shinobi War." In a convincing voice, Naruto stated, "If you want proof, I know that the Kyuubi is sealed inside me and that my father Minato Namikaze is the one who sealed it into me. I managed to kill him and then everything went black and I woke up here." The boy had to be telling the truth, or else he wouldn't be aware of his heritage. "Naruto, how did this happen?" Hiruzen's eyes widened at this point, and his pipe fell to the desk below, sprinkling ashes everywhere. "Jiji, I'm not sure. I killed Madara Uchiha, as I mentioned, and then I was back here. The future is not bright. Every country opposed Madara and the Akatsuki in the Fourth Shinobi War, but they still suffered significant losses. Other than Madara and myself, not many people remained in the end. Throughout his speech, Naruto displayed a range of emotions. I hope that with this second chance I've been given I can change the future for the better, he said. After he recovered from his shock, Hiruzen picked up his pipe again, refilled it, lit it, and took a big drag as he tried to process all that he had just been exposed to. I believe what you said, but it's hard to take all of this in, he said after a moment. Why were you fighting with Madara when he was supposed to be dead? Akatsuki had a Rinnegan user who brought Madara back to life as part of their plan. As he looked at Hiruzen, who was strangely composed given everything, Naruto remarked, he tried to take all 9-tailed beasts to become the Jubi Jinchuriki. He reasoned that nothing would truly surprise someone who was known as the god of shinobi and had served as a shinobi during 2 major wars. Naruto, how strong are you? As he took another puff of smoke and turned to face Naruto, Hiruzen asked. I'm no longer entirely certain. Although it appears that I did not keep my body, I still possess all of my technique knowledge. I was the strongest shinobi alive in the future. Despite the abuse he endured, Naruto became one of the greatest shinobi of all time. It was said that only Hashirama, the Shoden Hokage, could defeat Madara, but Naruto of the future also succeeded. I was the only one able to defeat Madara, no one else even came close, Naruto said, causing Hiruzen to smile slightly. Naruto, you should try out your new body. Hiruzen said, you must be aware of your abilities, which caused Naruto to nod. As the world became more clear to him, Naruto sighed with relief and said, first things first. Looks like my Rinnegan still works. The Rinnegan was a thing of legends. Many people had never even heard of it, much less seen them in person. Hiruzen was dumbfounded at this point, as he had never seen anyone with God's eyes in his many years of experience, but this 12-year-old boy in front of him displayed them as if it were nothing, and he could almost feel the power radiating off of these eyes. Naruto grinned at Hiruzen's display before deciding to make it worse, if at all possible. For a brief moment, Naruto stood motionless, but then he was covered in yellow chakra once more. His Rinnegan turned blood red as the 9 tomos circled his slitted bar pupil, signifying that he had complete control over both the Kyuubi's chakra and Sage Mode. Everyone in the village experienced a sudden, peaceful, and warm sensation that came from the Hokage Tower. Most people chose to ignore it and savor the sensation. Even though Hiruzen relished the sensation of warmth, he still had a ton of questions, beginning with, what eyes are those? He gestured toward Naruto's now red eyes. After a brief moment of laughter at the god of shinobi's stutter, Naruto said, this is known as the Rinne Sharingan. It combines all of the Sharingan and Rinnegan's skills into one. It is only available to me when I am simultaneously in Sage Mode and using the Kyuubi's chakra. After that, Naruto released the chakra cloak and went back to being Rinnegan. He held his arm out to the side and concentrated for a moment before a black ball began to form in his hand. It spun and formed for a moment before exploding in his hand, burning the sleeve off his jumpsuit and singing the skin. Damn it! It looks like I'll have to readjust my body to handle my brain. He cried in agony as the yellow chakra swiftly engulfed his injured arm, healing it in a matter of seconds. Yes, it appears that your ability to control and utilize your chakras has diminished. Before trying any of your more advanced techniques, I would advise you to work on that, Hiruzen said. Just after I woke up during this period, Gigi, Mizuki approached me and attempted to deceive me into taking the seal scroll. Since I recalled doing the same thing when I first arrived here, I complied. The elder Hokage was shocked when Naruto said, I'm supposed to take him the scroll to the woods at midnight as a second chance to graduate. Mizuki was a trader and an academy instructor who worked on the village's future. This night was a lot to process. Do you think you can defeat Mizuki, Naruto-kun? Naruto nodded in response to Sarutobi's question. From what I remember of him, he is a very low-level chunin. I should be able to defeat him like I am, replied Naruto. All right, take the scroll and meet Mizuki as scheduled, but arrest him instead of handing him the scroll. Hiruzen warned Naruto-kun to exercise caution before giving him the scroll. After obtaining the scroll, Naruto departed the office with the intention of determining his remaining options prior to meeting Mizuki. As he spotted Mizuki in a clearing, Naruto dropped down to him, clearing his mind of the thoughts that were bothering him while he was jumping from tree to tree, reviewing the strategy in his mind. He knew that he could defeat Mizuki at his current level, but that any mistake could result in his death, as a genin could defeat a kage if they made the wrong mistake. Well, I'm shocked that you were able to accomplish it at all. Naruto, congratulations. With a smile on his face and no suspicions, Mizuki said, now just give me the scroll and you pass. After nodding, Naruto removed the scroll from his back and threw it at Mizuki, who snatched it up and burst out laughing. Excellent, Orochimaru. Sama will grant me all the power I want if I give him this scroll now, Mizuki shouted aloud. Playing the part, Naruto appeared astonished. What do you mean? Are you presenting Orochimaru with the scroll? Naruto inquired. Yes, and best of all, they won't ever find out that I stole the scroll. They'll have you put to death and blame it on the Kyuubi brat, Mizuki said, giggling uncontrollably. Dropping the charade, Naruto said, I won't let you leave here with it. He then turned on his Rinnegan and looked at Mizuki, saying, there's one problem with that plan. Brat, as if you could stop me, Mizuki yelled as he attached the scroll to his back and pulled out a giant shuriken. He drew back the shuriken to throw it when he heard a poof behind his back. He turned quickly to see that the scroll was gone, replaced with a shadow clone of Naruto. Oh shit, Mizuki said as the clone began to glow white. When his clone exploded, launching Mizuki towards him, Naruto said, shadow clone explosion. He drew back his fist and coated it with as much lightning as he could, then slammed it into the traitor's face, releasing the lighting chakra, sending Mizuki flying into the ground and leaving a crater. When the smoke cleared, Mizuki was lying among the rubble, unconscious, with the upper half of his torso burned and smoking. Naruto smiled before jumping down in the hole, applying a chakra suppression seal on Mizuki, and tying his arms and legs together. After grabbing Mizuki and hurriedly returning to the Hokage tower to report to the elder Sarutobi, Naruto turned to the Hokage and grinned, saying, mission success Hokage. Sama. He then handed the unconscious Mizuki to the Anbu, who transported him to the prison. Well done, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen said, grinning at the young blonde. Did he cause you any trouble? He asked, knowing the answer in advance. No, he didn't even have a chance to attack because he underestimated me. I used a lightning punch and a clone explosion to defeat him. I then sealed him with a chakra suppression seal, Naruto answered. After a moment of searching his desk, Sarutobi came up with what he was looking for and tossed it to Naruto, who caught it and grinned. Naruto looked down at the blue Hite-8 he now held and said, I think defeating a Chunin-level traitor is a step above the Genin exam. Despite the setbacks, it appears that you have already surpassed Chunin's level. Before the Chunin exams in 6 months, you'll have time to reassess and develop, after which you ought to be free to show who you really are. That sounds good, Gigi, Naruto said, nodding to the Hokage as he tied the Hite-8 around his forehead. Thank you. Naruto-kun, you are very welcome. As Naruto turned to go, Hiruzen said, go home and rest now. Team assignments are at 8 o'clock in the morning. Naruto nearly reached the door before abruptly turning around and asking, Gigi, is there anything I could suggest regarding the teams? Go ahead Naruto-kun, I'm listening. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX sat in the classroom with all the other students, listening to them gossip about who they wanted and didn't want on their team, what sensei they would get, and other such topics. He was a little bored because he already had a good idea of how the selection process would go. Iruka finally made her way into the room and got everyone's attention after a few minutes of chatting. Good morning, class. I am aware that this is the final time some of you will be in my classroom. Before sending you out to conduct the actual Genin test, your Jonin senseis ought to be here at any moment to choose their teams. Everyone in the classroom started asking Iruka questions about the true test at this point in his speech. Everyone, please relax. It's exactly what I said. Iruka started to say, it is up to your Jonin sensei to give you a test to see if you are worthy of being shinobi, but was cut off when the first Jonin sensei, Kakashi Hitaki, who had a terrible habit of always being late, arrived. His statements are accurate. You will be returned to the academy for an additional year of remediation if you do not pass our test. As of right now, my specific exam has a 100% failure rate. As all the students prayed that he wasn't their sensei, Kakashi concluded, no team has ever passed my exam. Naruto simply laughed, recalling his first test with Kakashi. All three students stood up when Kakashi said, all right, Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Hinata Hyuga. Meet me at Training Ground 7 in 30 minutes. Kakashi's lecture about tardiness struck Naruto as somewhat ironic, but he dismissed it and continued on toward the door with his team. If you're late, you fail. Kurenai Yuhi, the next sensei to arrive, selected her three students, Sakura Haruno, Shino Aburame, and Kiba Inuzuka, before heading to Training Ground 8 for her team meeting. Shikamaru Nara, Shoji Akamichi, and Ino Yamanaka were picked up by Asuma Sarutobi before Kurenai could depart, and they proceeded to Training Ground 10. The code alongside Team 7. So I know we haven't been the best of friends until now, Naruto began, recalling all the fights he had had with Sasuke. But how about we put the past behind us and start fresh? Naruto led his teammates out of the classroom and started walking towards Training Ground 7 with them in tow. Sasuke was fairly quiet as usual, and Hinata was following along, playing with her hands. Naruto soon grew bored of the silence and attempted to strike up a conversation. He finished extending his hand to Sasuke, who gave Naruto a quick glance before reaching out and shaking his own hand. "This will improve teamwork," he said. Naruto perspired as Sasuke uttered, "I can't afford to have anyone slow me down." He's still a cocky prick, but at least it's a start. "Hinata, you've always been pretty quiet, why don't you tell us a bit about yourself?" Naruto looked at her, and she wasn't disappointed. Of course he knew now that she had a crush on him and was too shy to admit it, but she didn't know that. Hinata watched the scene with curiosity, wondering if Naruto would do something similar with her. Though she was red in the face, Hinata did not pass out. "Well, why you know that I'm the heiress to the Hyuga clan," she said. "I'm practicing the Gentle Fist, a form of taijutsu, in my F family. I've trained exclusively with my F father in taijutsu and circa chakra control up until this point because my F family doesn't support the teaching of other styles," she stammered out before turning to face the floor. "That's all well and good, but how about you? What do you enjoy doing in your spare time?" With a slight smile, Naruto inquired, understanding that he was upsetting her, but it was necessary to help her come out of her shell. After a brief pause, she said, I enjoy cooking. Cinnamon buns are my favorite dish," she uttered softly, not raising her gaze from the floor. "Hey, Hinata-chan, you ought to prepare some food for us sometime." As he gave her a shoulder pat, Naruto spoke quite loudly. She fainted immediately because the unexpected physical contact was too much for her to handle. Because of his quick reflexes, Naruto was able to catch her before she hit the ground, lift her up bridal style, and proceed to the training ground. Sasuke simply grinned at his teammates' interactions. Although he was still a little too loud for Sasuke's taste, Naruto appeared to have calmed down since their class days. Hinata, on the other hand, was quite reserved and quiet, but she would quickly open up around Naruto. Shortly after arriving at their destination, Naruto sat Hinata against a tree and then sat down to wait for Kakashi. Sasuke nodded and took a seat alongside his teammates after Naruto said, "Sasuke, you should have a seat, something tells me that Kakashi-sensei will be a while." Before Hinata woke up and joined in after apologizing for fainting, Naruto and Sasuke had been chatting for a few minutes. After all, it looks like they would make a solid team. The three genin were unaware that the one-eyed Jonin, whom they now referred to as Sensei, was observing the scene from a tree a few yards away. Kakashi grinned beneath his mask and thought, they seem like they will do fine in the teamwork area. Maybe this team will be the one to finally pass. With his hand raised in a wave, Kakashi leapt from the tree and began to approach the three genin. "Sorry you're late," he started, but Naruto interrupted him, now standing up, glaring daggers and pointing at him. The three genin began to perspire as he concluded, "Sorry, a black cat crossed my path on the way here so I had to take the long way around." He merely smiled his eyes in response before going on. "My name is Kakashi Hatake and should you pass my test, I'll be your Jonin sensei. First I'd like everyone to introduce themselves. I'll go first. My name is Kakashi. I like reading my book and not much else. I dislike many things. My goals are, I haven't really thought of anything. You next, Blondie." Naruto laughed at the moniker but ignored it. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like ramen and training. I dislike those who try to harm me or my precious people. My goal is to become the greatest Hokage ever, believe it," Naruto said with a fist pump. Kakashi pointed to Sasuke and said, "Now you broody." His name choice earned him another scoff. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha, and I enjoy training to get stronger. I don't really dislike anything, but I do detest some things, like a certain person. My goals are more like ambitions than goals. All I need to do is get strong enough to kill that specific person." Hinata blushed as Kakashi pointed at her and said, "Okay now you loudmouth. My name is Hinata Hyuga. I enjoy circa cooking and cinnamon buns. I don't like people who act rudely toward others without cause." Building resolve toward the end, Hinata stated, "My goal is to become the head of the Hyuga clan and bring the main and branch house under one roof. Alright, so I have a shy clan heir, an emo avenger, and a loud blonde." Mostly to himself, Kakashi remarked, "This should be interesting. Okay, here's the plan. It's your responsibility to retrieve the 2 bells I've already earned. You pass my test if you receive a bell. If not, you must return to the academy for the following year. The 3 students perspired but soon recovered their composure before jumping away and into the woods to devise a plan. You have until lunch, Kakashi said idly before reaching into his pouch and taking out his book, Icha Icha Paradise. In the center of the clearing, where a certain slothful one-eyed Jonin was reading his small orange book, 3 pairs of eyes gazed. Since he was an elite Jonin, he was able to detect the 3 genins' hiding place with ease. Sasuke whispered, "So Naruto, any ideas?" And Naruto just nodded. "Well, to be honest, I could probably steal the bells by myself given that he is underestimating us so much, but I think the point of this test is teamwork," replied Naruto. "How could you take them? No offense, but you were the dead last and he is a Jonin. And how is the test about teamwork? There's only 2 bells and 3 of us. It's meant to see which of us are stronger and to send the weaker back to the academy." Sasuke responded with a confused expression. "I'll explain soon, don't worry, but for now just trust that I'm much stronger than I let on." About the bells. Konoha values teamwork above all else. I don't think they would make a test where teammates were supposed to betray each other. I think the hidden objective here is for us to show that we are capable of working together as a unit. Even though she did harbor feelings for him, Sasuke and Hinata found it difficult to accept that Naruto was able to think so deeply. I firmly believe that Naruto.kun is correct. Even for a whisper, Hinata's voice was quiet as she said, "It only makes sense." "Alright, then we're starting over. What is the strategy?" Accepting their suggestions, Sasuke returned the whisper. After briefly holding his hand to his chin in a contemplative position, Naruto said, "Hinata, are you able to henge into a kunai?" "Alright, then, Hinata will henge into a kunai, and I'll throw her among some others," he said, to which she merely nodded. She will unhenge and pick up a bell when he avoids them. He concluded by receiving a nod from his teammates. "We can divert him with some low-level jutsu, just be careful not to hurt Hinata-chan." As Hinata vanished in a puff of smoke, Naruto said, "Okay Hinata-chan, let's get started." He grabbed 1 kunai before it hit the ground and then reached into his pouch to pull out a couple more. He nodded to Sasuke and looked at him. Sasuke nodded back, and Naruto threw the kunai precisely at Kakashi, who saw it and moved to the side to avoid them. As a wall of mud formed around Kakashi, obstructing his escape, Naruto swiftly performed a set of hand seals and slammed his palms on the ground, saying, "Doden. Doryuheki." Sasuke then performed his own hand seals, Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu. He fired several small fireballs towards Kakashi, forcing him back to where he had initially dodged the kunai. He turned just in time to catch a palm strike to the thigh from Hinata, who grabbed the bells and leapt back before Kakashi could retaliate. As she hit the ground, Kakashi vanished in a puff of smoke, leaving only a log in his place. Something grabbed her ankles before she could react, and she looked down in time to see the ground rapidly approaching, sunk up to her neck. Kakashi appeared beside her, grinning, and said, "Doden. Shinju Zanshu no Jutsu. Congratulations, you nearly got me, but it wasn't good enough. Find your teammates now and get this done." "Gosh. Come on Sasuke, give me some fire," Naruto yelled, punching his fist in frustration after it failed and he now had Hinata-chan. As soon as he finished a set of hand seals, Sasuke inhaled deeply, causing his chest to swell. "Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu," said, releasing a stream of fire from his mouth in Kakashi's direction. Kakashi saw the attack coming and was impressed that 2 fresh genin could manage such an attack, so he jumped into the air, dodging the fireball before going through his own hand seals. Sweden no Jutsu," Naruto said as he finished his own hand seals, blowing out a gust of wind, combining it with Sasuke's fire, and making the fireball turn white hot and nearly double in size. "Kagebunshin no Jutsu," Kakashi said, creating a clone to pursue Naruto while the original pursued Sasuke. Naruto and Sasuke swiftly separated and dodged as the water bullets tore into the ground where they were just standing. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX avoid Kakashi's axe kick, and then he had to jump backwards to avoid another sweeping kick. He then pushed forward and threw a punch at Kakashi, who easily dodged it before throwing an uppercut into Naruto's stomach. Kakashi was happy that he had knocked him out, but he was taken aback when Naruto vanished in a cloud of smoke. "Shit," Kakashi said. Then Naruto appeared behind him and threw a roundhouse kick into the back of his head, and his eyes widened before he vanished in a cloud of smoke. Naruto grinned at his victory and then went to assist Sasuke. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX Kakashi's low kick. While still in the air, Kakashi leapt up and spun around, dropping an axe kick into Sasuke's face, slamming him hard into the ground. Sasuke got up slowly, but he got up nonetheless, realizing that he was running low on chakra and that he needed to try to get the bells as quickly as possible. He leapt forward again, drew back to punch Kakashi, but was kicked in the side of his head, sending him flying into a nearby tree before he fell to the ground unconscious. After checking his watch and realizing that it was still 15 minutes before noon, Kakashi went to pick up Sasuke and place him in a safe place by Hinata before locating Naruto. He went to the tree and leaned down to pick him up when he felt a tug on his belt, and when he turned around, he saw Naruto smiling and sinking back into the ground behind him. Kakashi cursed himself for letting his guard down, then gathered up Sasuke and walked back to the center of the field where Naruto was releasing Hinata. "Congratulations, Naruto. Who would you like to give the other belt to now that you have both? Tell me which one you'll return to the academy. The decision is yours," Kakashi said, glancing between Hinata and Sasuke, who was just regaining consciousness. Naruto gave Hinata one bell and grinned at her while he held onto the other. Kakashi scowled at that, hoping his student would make a speech about teamwork or something, but it appears he had yet another failure. He was shocked, though, when Naruto threw the other bell to Sasuke, who caught it and threw it to the ground, followed by Hinata. With conviction in his eyes, Sasuke gazed at Kakashi and remarked, "We're a team, and we stick together." "All right. It's all or nothing," Hinata continued. Naruto concluded, and Kakashi thought he saw Obito grinning behind him. "So if anyone goes back to the academy, we all go." As thunder clouds began to form behind him, Kakashi began, "Well, since you put it that way," he concluded with a thumbs up as the storm passed. His antics caused all three students to perspire, but they soon recovered their composure and congratulated one another. We are given a set of rigorous rules to adhere to in the ninja world. To be an effective shinobi, we have to adhere to the rules to the letter. With a firm voice that demanded the full attention of all three genin, Kakashi declared, "You are the first to ever pass my test, so I'd like to tell you a story. Those who break these rules are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash. There was a shinobi in Konoha who was known as the White Fang a number of years ago. In his prime, he was said to have been as strong as the Sannin. He adhered rigorously to the shinobi code of conduct throughout his life. He was given a mission to a foreign country one day, which was crucial and had significant consequences for the village. Everything was going smoothly until the enemy captured one of his teammates. Something in him that day told him otherwise, even though the shinobi code says that you should complete the mission at all costs. He chose to save the man, which led him to fail the mission, even though he could still finish it without the missing team member." Kakashi paused here, observing the three genin sitting cross-legged in front of him, listening to every word. He returned to the village with no casualties after saving his teammate's life, but he was ridiculed by the village for failing such an important mission. Kakashi did what he felt was truly right in his heart and returned to the village to report the failed mission. The man he saved even abandoned the White Fang and joined the rest of the populace. Over the following few weeks, he experienced such intense stares, whispers, and mockery everywhere he went that it sent him into a deep depression. He eventually stopped eating anything and stopped ever leaving his house. He grew increasingly depressed over the ensuing years until he finally lost it and committed suicide. Kakashi hesitated once more, stifling the tears that threatened to spill from his open eye, and then he unearthed a sword from his pouch, a short sword that appeared to be a tanto and had a small circular handguard. He made a quick vertical slash, and the genin were taken aback when the sword left behind a white chakra streak. This sword, the White Light Chakra Saber, was the sword that the White Fang used during his prime, he explained. "Tsukumo Hitaki Konoha's White Fang is the only thing that reminds me of my father. My father passed away when I was 8 years old, so I was raised to believe in strictly adhering to the shinobi code. I became a cold, disengaged shinobi by using the code as law on every mission I went on. I didn't realize I was mistaken until I went on my first mission as a Jonin during the Third Great Ninja War. In Minato Sensei's absence, I led my team, and my teammate Rin was taken prisoner during our mission. I decided to leave her behind and finish the mission, but my teammate Obito Uchiha argued with me, claiming that we had to save Rin and that while people who disobey the rules are trash, those who desert their teammates are worse than trash. I proceeded to complete the mission while he went off to do just that. It took me several minutes to realize that he was correct. When I got back, Obito was battling a Jonin who was going to be killed. I charged in and killed the assailant before he could land the last blow. But I didn't notice the other shinobi in time, and he attacked, severing my eye and leaving me blind. Obito killed the man just before he finished me by waking up his Sharingan. After that, we went to save Rin, but while we were leaving the cave where she was bound, another adversary used jutsu to bring the cave down. I missed a falling rock that should have killed me because I was blind in one eye, but Obito shoved me aside and gave his life to save me. Obito was barely alive when we dug through the fallen boulders following the collapse. A boulder crushed the whole right side of his body. In his final moments, Obito chose to give me his left Sharingan eye to replace the one I lost, Kakashi said, pausing once more as he raised his Hite-aid to reveal his Sharingan. In order for him to see the world through me, he wanted me to take his eye. We continued and finished the mission after he passed away, which helped us win the war and turn it in our favor. I've been thinking about what he said that day ever since. As the genin were about to cry from hearing his story, Kakashi wiped away the tears from his eyes and said, "Those who break the rules are trash, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash." He recovered his composure after a few minutes before turning to face his team. "Well done on your promotion to official Team 7. Before the genin nodded and everyone scattered, Kakashi said, "Come back here tomorrow at 0800 sharp to begin your training." A few months had passed since Naruto was assigned to Team 7, and the team had been practicing a variety of skills and working on simple D-rank missions to develop teamwork skills. Naruto, thanks to the Shadow Clone training, had made good progress in developing his chakra reserves, chakra control, and body strength to the point where he could use some of his old techniques. Sasuke had activated his Sharingan, despite only having one Tomo in each eye, and had been training with his family's scrolls on fire-style jutsu. Hinata was making good progress in a modified version of her family's taijutsu style, training frequently with her father. Naruto has yet to reveal his past life to his teammates, but he plans to do so soon. They are currently debating with Iruka and the elderly Hokage in the Hokage Tower Mission Hall. "Old man, I believe we're prepared for a better mission. I want a true shinobi mission. I'm sick of digging ditches and putting up with that fucking cat." Iruka merely shook his head as Naruto yelled. "Naruto, you know how the mission system works. You haven't got the experience for a higher ranked mission yet." Iruka responded calmly. As he smoked his pipe, Hiruzen remarked, "Now Iruka, maybe Naruto is right. They have been doing extremely well lately and I think I may have the perfect mission for them." Iruka started to say, "But Hokage-sama, but Naruto interrupted. "Yes. Come on, we're capable of handling anything." Naruto cheered, causing Iruka's eye to twitch. Naruto was already aware of the nature of this specific mission. He had spoken with the Hokage about it in advance to ensure that his team was given it, but he put on a show because he didn't want the world to know just yet. "All right, Iruka, could you please bring Tazuna in?" Iruka sighed in defeat and walked out of the room after Hiruzen finished speaking. A few minutes later, he came back with an older man. He had a towel around his neck and a big pointed hat. He smelled faintly of sake on his breath and glanced around the room before turning back to Naruto and stopping, saying, "I thought I hired 4 ninja. Not one ninja and some children. This group, especially the blonde one, seems incapable of beating up a fly." His shout made Naruto's eye twitch. He was obviously reminded of this speech, but it still infuriated him. "Would you like me to demonstrate my weakness to you, old bastard?" Naruto glared at Tazuna and yelled as he approached him. "Yes, I do wish you would give Pipistack a try." In response, Tazuna moved forward to meet Naruto's glare. Sasuke grabbed Naruto as he drew back to punch the man, saying, "Calm down doofus, if you kill the client then there's no mission." Naruto quickly stuck his tongue out at Tazuna before Tazuna was dragged out of the room. Now that Naruto and Sasuke were outside, Kakashi completed compiling the mission details and instructed Tazuna to meet them at the village gates at 8 a.m. tomorrow. When he returned outside, his team was waiting for him. "All right, team, pack for a 3-week mission and head home to rest. He requests protection while he completes the bridge as well as an escort back to the Wave Country. We should be able to handle this without any issues because we don't anticipate anything more serious than a few bandits and thugs." The 3 genin nodded in agreement as Kakashi said, "We leave at 0800, don't be late." They then divided up to get ready for the mission. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX standing at the gates getting ready to leave, and Kakashi was making one last check of his team's supplies to make sure they had everything they needed because this was their first mission outside of the village. After a few minutes, he gave the all clear, and they started walking towards Wave Country. The first few hours went smoothly until they were getting close to the boundaries of Fire Country, at which point everyone noticed a few puddles in the road, but they didn't give it any thought, with the exception of Naruto, who anticipated the situation, and Kakashi, who had an intriguing thought. It hasn't rained in weeks, why would there be a puddle in the road? It didn't take long for Kakashi's suspicions to be confirmed when the puddles burst into smoke, and before anyone could react, two figures ran out of the smoke and wrapped Kakashi in a barbed chain. Sasuke and Hinata turned just in time to see them jerk the chain tight, shredding Kakashi into pieces in a shower of blood. The apparent leader of the pair, the one with only one horn, looked towards the other and laughed, adding, "One down, EYY Maizu." As he turned to face the civilian and the three surviving genin, the man now known as Maizu remarked, "Now that the leader is gone, these brats shouldn't be a problem." Naruto pulled out a kunai and stuck the tip through one of the links before jumping up and backwards, making the chain miss the group. Sasuke and Hinata were both momentarily stunned but quickly recovered their wits after Naruto saved them. The two men then ran towards the opposite side of the group with the intention of catching them in the chain. Hinata should go right, and Sasuke should go left. As he slammed the kunai into a tree, locking the brothers in place, Naruto let out a shout. Sasuke and Hinata quickly jumped towards their respective target, intent on disabling them while they were bound up, but never got the chance as the pair of men disconnected the chain from their gauntlets and jumped away. Once they dodged the attack, the men both dashed toward Naruto, labeling him as the next highest threat. The unnamed man was the first to reach him with his hand drawn back, ready to stab Naruto with his clawed gauntlet. He thrust his hand at Naruto's face only to be disappointed when Naruto ducked under the blow. Just as Naruto ducked, Maizu was on top of him with a knee to the face. Naruto threw his hand up in time to block the knee before delivering a punch to Maizu's gut, knocking him back several feet. With Maizu thrown back, Naruto quickly spun around, throwing his elbow into the other man's face. The unnamed man was launched in the air by the strike but quickly righted himself and prepared to strike Naruto again when Sasuke jumped up and delivered a spin kick to his head, knocking him into a tree. He wasted no time getting up and jumping towards Sasuke and swinging his gauntlet towards Sasuke's chest, only to be blocked by a kunai. He tried to throw a kick in at Sasuke's side, but that was also blocked. The man was beginning to get furious that none of his attacks were working. He tried once more to impale Sasuke with his gauntlet, but Sasuke sidestepped the attack and buried his kunai into the man's side before kicking him away. "You little bastard, you're going to pay for that," the man cried in agony as he seized the kunai, pulled it from his side, and threw it to the ground. He shouted in a voice that was obviously in pain, and then he ran again, but he was startled halfway there by a sharp pain in his chest, and when he looked down, he saw Hinata standing there with her palm against his chest, just above his heart, her Byakugan active. He tried to swear at her, but all that came out of his mouth was blood, and he coughed again before collapsing to the ground. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX was his brother falling to the ground dead. Naruto slid back several feet from the punch Naruto just delivered, then he righted himself and jumped toward Naruto with his gauntlet cocked back ready to impale the brat. He simply twisted to the side, allowing the claw to go right by his chest, then he grabbed Mizu's arm with one arm and jerked it forward without letting go of the broken arm, causing Mizu to scream again and lunge his body forward to relieve the pain. When he was unconscious, Naruto lowered him to the ground, took a spool of wire from his bag, and tied him up against a tree. Kakashi then made an appearance, simply saying, "Good work, team," as he leapt down from a nearby tree. When Sasuke, Hinata, and Tazuna looked to the bloody spot where Kakashi was killed, they saw nothing but a shredded log. His attempt to yell was unsuccessful. Sasuke staggered out, looking from the dead attacker to the log and back to Kakashi. "Wah, we thought you were dead, Kakashi. Sensei," he stated. Hinata also surveyed the battlefield, pausing briefly on Gozu's body before hitting her knees and throwing up her breakfast, pausing briefly before starting to dry heave once more, and then finishing her vomiting and crying while gazing at the ground. Kakashi knelt next to Hinata and placed a hand on her shoulder, saying, "The first kill is always the hardest, but don't beat yourself up, Hinata." "Hinata-chan, you can't beat yourself up like this. Killing is a necessary part of being a shinobi," Naruto said as he swiftly moved to her side. "It's okay, Hinata-chan," Naruto said, reaching out to cup her chin and lifting her face until their eyes met. "It's good to feel remorse when you were forced to kill. That's what separates us from monsters. We're always here for you. We are friends in addition to being teammates," Sasuke continued, "and friends are always there for each other." After easily defeating two opponents of Chunin level and experiencing their first real bonding, Kakashi was extremely proud of his team and thought they would have a bright future. Kakashi briefly relished the moment before deciding he had work to do. He approached Maizu's restrained form and squatted down to eye level with him, touching his palm to his head and channeling a small amount of lightning chakra, which instantly woke him up. Maizu then screamed in agony from his severely fractured arm once more, and Kakashi quickly covered his hand in lightning chakra before making a horizontal slice above the fracture, watching the arm fall to the ground with a thump as the lightning burned out the nerves in the arm, numbing it so that Maizu would calm down. "Who brought you here?" With a chilly tone, Kakashi said. The reply from Maizu was simply, "I won't tell you a thing." Kakashi's response was a direct backhand to the face. "What about right now?" "Never," Maizu answered. Maizu grunted in agony as Kakashi withdrew a kunai and stabbed it into his remaining arm, then slowly twisted the blade until Maizu's grunts turned into screams. "Are you going to crack yet?" "No," was Maizu's hesitant response, as he stabbed one kunai into his leg and then pulled out another to stab it into the other. Maizu was on the verge of squealing but was still silent. "All right," Kakashi said, grabbing both kunai and twisting them. "Okay, I'll talk," Maizu squealed. Before Maizu could say anything, Kakashi stopped twisting the kunai and pulled them out, saying, "Gato sent us here to kill the bridge builder." "All right, are there any more?" Kakashi inquired. "I'm not sure," Maizu answered. He never mentioned other shinobi. With all the information he required, Kakashi cut Maizu in the back of the neck, knocking him out, then performed a series of hand seals before slamming his palms to the ground. A small pug was standing there when the smoke cleared. "Yo, what you need, Kakashi?" the pug uttered. "Pakun, you must inform Hokage Sama of Maizu's presence and request that he dispatch a team to apprehend him." Kakashi stated, "We are upgrading this mission to a rank but continuing on," and Pakun nodded before taking off. Before they took off again, this time as quickly as the civilian could go, Kakashi said, "All right team, we need to step up the pace now and get Tazuna out of harm's way." The remainder of the journey to the border between Fire and Wave Country went smoothly, and the group arrived at the border rather quickly. They boarded a small boat to take them across the river that served as Wave Country's natural border, and the boat quickly transported them across the river and into Wave Country, where they disembarked once more. Tazuna pointed off into the distance and said, "Okay, it's only a couple more miles to my house where we can rest for the night before starting on the bridge in the morning." Kakashi signaled for him to lead the way, and Team 7 started to follow him, but they didn't get very far before they heard a little rustling sound coming from a nearby bush. Knowing he would hit nothing but a rabbit, Naruto swiftly drew out a kunai and hurled it at the noise, inspecting it quickly to discover a white snow rabbit with a few hairs missing from its side and a kunai buried in the ground directly behind it. Kakashi swiftly noted the rabbit's hair, saying, "That rabbit should have darker fur because it's spring. It must have been housed in a cage because it is white." At that moment, he heard a whizzing sound coming from behind him. "Everyone, get down now. Someone must be using it for a kawarimi." As he dove and threw Tazuna to the ground alongside him, Kakashi shouted, and they all fell to the ground as a big sword swung over them and sank into a nearby tree. When Team 7 members all turned to face the sword, they saw a tall man standing atop it. Although the man was dressed in camouflage sleeves, striped pants, and no shirt, what stood out about him were the bandages covering his lower face and the sideways hide. His face was expressionless as he stood on the sword, glaring at Tazuna. Kakashi recognized the man right away and looked at Zabuza, saying, "Well, if it isn't Zabuza-kun, the demon of the mist." It's an honor to be recognized by the famous Sharingan Kakashi. Zabuza laughed. "Now if you'll just hand over the bridge builder, I'll be on my way." Kakashi revealed his Sharingan eye by raising a hand to his hide and then to his forehead. Before turning to Zabuza, he said, "You know I can't do that, Zabuza. It's my mission to protect Tazuna and I never fail my mission. Team, guard Tazuna, don't get into this fight, it's way over your heads." Zabuza jumped down from the sword and grabbed it, effortlessly removing it from the tree. "It's my mission to kill the old man and I'll have you know that I don't fail my missions either." He brought his hands into the seal of confrontation and swiftly swung the sword onto his back. Kirigakure no Jutsu. The entire area was soon covered in a dense mist that obscured everyone's vision, including Kakashi's Sharingan. "Everyone be careful. He is a master of silent killing. He will kill you before you even know that you're dead." Kakashi spoke quietly. Abruptly, a voice that was not physically present emerged from the fog. "There are 8 places on the human body that will cause instant death when cut, but I'm sure you already know that, so I'll skip the boring stuff," Zabuza replied. There was silence for a moment, and then Kakashi felt something behind him. He saw Zabuza swing his big blade at Dazuna just as he turned. Unsure if he would arrive in time, he hurried forward, drawing a kunai and getting ready to block the attack. Though he found it difficult to match Zabuza's strength, Naruto swiftly withdrew a kunai and stepped into the slash, raising the weapon and blocking it as he was nearly in range. After noticing that Naruto had halted the attack, Kakashi launched an assault, attempting to stab Zabuza in the side. Seeing this, Zabuza leapt back to dodge the stab, then spun his enormous sword and slashed downward. Kakashi stopped and leapt back to avoid the blow, but the sword's length caused him to still sustain a minor cut on his arm, which made him grunt in agony. Before putting his hand to his mouth in a circle with his thumb and index finger, he swiftly overcame the pain and blurred through some hand seals. He yelled, "Kaden! Karyuenden!" as he tossed out a dragon-shaped stream of flames. Zabuza dodged the attack by leaping backwards, but the fire changed course and followed him, forcing him to jump to the side once more. After evading the attack for a brief moment, he swiftly performed a series of hand seals. As a wall of water rose from the lake he was now standing on to obstruct the fire dragon, he exclaimed, "Sweden! Suijinheki!" When the dragon struck the water wall, the blows neutralized one another and the area was covered in steam. Kakashi was also standing on the water when the steam subsided, the two Jonins staring at one another and waiting for the other to move. Hinata and Sasuke gazed at them in disbelief. Neither had ever witnessed a battle between two shinobi of this level before. The killing intent is so strong, it's so much that I feel like a weaker person would be tempted to kill themselves just to get away from it. So this is what it's like when two Jonin fight. Sasuke was thinking as he was shivering. Hinata thought the same thing. Here, they were truly outclassed. The first to move was Zabuza, who ran toward Kakashi while brandishing his sword in preparation for a blow. Kakashi blocked his horizontal slash with a kunai after he made it. After correcting himself, he whirled around and slashed vertically, but Kakashi also stopped it. Zabuza felt a sharp pain in his chest just as he was about to launch another attack. A second Kakashi emerged from the water, a kunai buried in his chest, and he looked down to see him. After his victory, Kakashi smiled before Zabuza exploded into the water. As he turned to see Zabuza cleave through his clone in a puff of smoke, Kakashi thought, "Mizu Bunshin." Then Zabuza swung the sword in his direction, and he had to duck to avoid it. He watched Zabuza turn to water and splash back into the lake as soon as the sword passed over his head. He spun around in time to see Zabuza come out of the lake, snatch up the sword, and then slash down. The sword struck Kakashi in the neck, cleaving him in two before he could block. Zabuza smiled, pleased with the success of his deceitful plan. However, his happiness was short-lived because Kakashi turned into water. He felt the icy steel of the blade against his neck just as he was ready to search for Kakashi. Kakashi, who was holding a kunai against Zabuza's throat, declared, "This fight is over." Zabuza tensed up for a moment, then quickly ducked sideways and backwards to seize Kakashi's hand. He threw Kakashi over his shoulder with his momentum. Kakashi regained his balance and skidded back to the water's surface. Zabuza started a lengthy series of hand seals and chanted them aloud, saying, "It's time to end this." In order to keep up with Zabuza, Kakashi started copying each seal, his Sharingan spinning slowly. They both finished simultaneously. Both exclaimed, "Sweden! Suiryuenden!" as two enormous water dragons emerged from the lake and engaged in combat for supremacy. With their swords and kunai clashing, Zabuza and Kakashi both sprang forward and then leapt back. Zabuza began to run forward once more, but halted when Kakashi followed suit. He sprinted to the left, and when Kakashi followed suit, he was startled once more. Zabuza thought, "Is he?" But Kakashi interrupted. "Reading your mind?" "Yes." Kakashi exclaimed silently. Kakashi followed again as Zabuza placed his hands in the confrontation seal. He swiftly repositioned them to form a circle in front of his face, and Kakashi repeated the action. Zabuza screamed, "Bastard, all you're doing is copying me, you monkey," concluded Kakashi, when the rage in Zabuza's eyes turned red. Zabuza saw Kakashi doing the same and hurriedly started another round of hand seals, shouting, "I'll make sure you can never use that eye or mouth again." He saw a picture of himself performing the seals behind Kakashi as he glanced at him. Is this one of his genjutsu? Zabuza asked himself, momentarily losing concentration. Kakashi finished the jutsu with just that. Kakashi shouted, "Sweden! Daibafuku no Jutsu," as a sizable portion of the lake rose up, briefly whirled around him, then blasted forward and crashed into Zabuza. The enormous wave swept Zabuza away, uprooting trees and destroying everything in its path as it crashed through the landscape. When it was all over, Zabuza nearly passed out after colliding with a big tree. As he leapt down in front of Zabuza, Kakashi declared, "This fight is over." Zabuza whispered, How, can you see the future?" With his Sharingan slowly spinning, Kakashi gazed into Zabuza's eyes and uttered, "Yes. And in yours I see death." Kakashi then began to cut Zabuza's throat with a kunai, but before he could get to him, a number of needles materialized out of nowhere and pierced Zabuza's neck. Kakashi swiftly withdrew and turned to face the tree where the needles were coming from, spotting a man there. The short man had a brown sash tied around his waist and was dressed in green hiyori over red pinstriped shirt and pants. But what set him apart was the red, swirling white mask with the Kirigakure symbol on the forehead. As he leapt from the tree, the enigmatic man declared, "You were right. Death was in future." Kakashi stooped to check Zabuza's pulse, but there was none. Kakashi thought, "He's definitely dead." Then he got back up and turned to face the man wearing the mask. "Judging by that mask, you must be a hunter. Nin." The hunter. Nin nodded toward Kakashi and continued, "Yes, I have been following Zabuza for some time now, waiting for a chance to take him out. I thank you for helping me." Then he stooped and began to seize Zabuza. "Now I must take the body back to Kirigakure so that he may be disposed of properly." With Zabuza on his shoulders, he got to his feet and began to walk away before he had to drop Zabuza and make a quick dodge of a kunai. Naruto began to move in the direction of the two, saying, "Wait just a second. Isn't it the protocol for hunter. Nin to destroy the body on sight? To make sure that none of the village secrets get out?" With a severe tone, Kakashi addressed Naruto directly and said, "Naruto. He's doing his job. Attacking him could be seen as an act of aggression from Konoha to Kiri. Let him leave if he chooses not to destroy the body here." He blurred through a set of hand seals, and Naruto responded, "Trust me, Kakashi. Sensei, this man isn't who he says he is." Before he could release a stream of fire toward Zabuza's body, he said, "Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu." Zabuza was about to be consumed by the fire when a shield of ice appeared from the ground in front of him, putting out the flames. The ice surrounding Zabuza remained unbroken as the fireball swiftly dissipated. Jumping in Naruto's direction, the hunter. Nin displayed a one-handed hand seal. As the wall of ice launched multiple spikes in an attempt to impale Naruto and Kakashi, he uttered, "Hisatsu Hyoso." Before the hunter. Nin leapt to Zabuza's side and threw him over his shoulder before scuttling off, both shinobi leapt back to avoid the spikes. Kakashi punched his palm and remarked, "Damn it. He was a fake. You were right, Naruto. I should have finished him when I had the chance." Then he turned to the others in his group and covered his Sharingan. Kakashi began to walk away before collapsing face down. "Okay guys, let's get Tazuna home to safety. Zabuza is not dead, so we need to rest up and train you so you'll be able to help." He laughed a little and said, "Well, I think I used too much chakra. I can't move my body." Reaching down, Naruto lifted Kakashi and threw him over his shoulder. As they started to walk, Naruto said, "All right guys, let's get to Tazuna's so we can get some rest." Unbeknownst to the rest of the group, Naruto was directing his chakra into Kakashi, speeding up his recovery and recharging his nearly depleted reserves. Soon after, the group arrived at Tazuna's house, where Naruto placed Kakashi in a bed to rest. He went back downstairs to speak with his team and possibly grab some food after he had Kakashi in bed. He could smell food coming from the kitchen as soon as he got to the bottom of the stairs, so he went inside to find Tazuna, Hinata, Sasuke, and Tazuna's daughter Tsunami seated around the table with multiple bowls of soup. "Naruto-kun, have a seat, I just finished cooking udon soup. I set a place for you." Tsunami pointed to the vacant seat next to Hinata as she greeted him after spotting him first. With a polite nod, Naruto walked over to his chair and took a seat. Before wolfing down his bowl and a few more that Tsunami offered him, Naruto said, "Thank you, Tsunami-san." After completing their meals, the three genin thanked Tsunami and departed from the table. Naruto nodded to the other genin before they all went to bed to rest. "Guys, get some rest, tomorrow we need to train. Zabuza is not dead and he has an accomplice. They'll be back as soon as Zabuza has had a chance to recover. It would undoubtedly be a difficult day tomorrow." The team was standing in a clearing in the woods behind Tazuna's house the following morning after breakfast. The genin in front of Kakashi nodded as he said, "Okay everyone, I'm still a bit sore from the encounter yesterday, but we have a lot to accomplish and not a lot of time to do it. Zabuza will be back and this time he will have his accomplice, the hunter. Nin with him. I will engage Zabuza with Sasuke while Naruto and Hinata engage the hunter. Nin. Do you think it wise to put two genin against the hunter. Nin instead of three when we don't know his abilities?" Sasuke inquired. Well, from what we saw, the Hunter.nin uses ice-style moves. I've heard that the ice style is nearly indestructible, but Hinata's Jayuken should be able to see the chakra and destroy the ice without problem, while Naruto himself should be able to handle whatever else the Hunter.nin throws at him. He's well above Chunin level in all fields. When we're done with this next week's worth of training, you two should be able to easily defeat the Hunter.nin even if he is Jonin level. Kakashi responded by grabbing a few pieces of paper out of his vest pocket. As all the genin channeled their chakra into the paper, Kakashi went on, as for Zabuza, he is a strong water user, so if what I suspect is true, then Sasuke will be great long-range assistance to me against Zabuza. What I just handed you is chakra paper. If you channel chakra into it, it will tell you your elemental nature. When Sasuke directed his chakra into his paper, he saw it crumple, catch fire, and burn away. He asked for confirmation, so I have fire and lightning, right? And Kakashi nodded. Just as I thought. As a Uchiha, it's all but guaranteed that you have fire, but I figured you had the lightning affinity as well. Kakashi replied. Kakashi then turned to face Hinata, who was shocked when her own paper split in half and became soggy on both sides after channeling chakra to it. Hinata said, "S. So I have W, water and wind?" Yes, and might I add that it is rare for a genin to have more than one affinity. Most don't develop their second or third affinity until they are seasoned Chunin or even Jonin. Also, wind is a rare element in Konoha. I can only think of one other currently alive. Actually, that's probably two. Kakashi concluded by looking at Naruto. This test was useless to Naruto, who already knew that he had an affinity for all the elements and the ability to use the sub-elements due to his Rinnegan, but everyone expected him to pass, so what the hell? Everyone watched in awe as he directed his chakra into the paper, causing it to split into 4 equal pieces. One that turned to dust, one that became soggy, one that crinkled up, and one that caught fire. Naruto put his hand behind his head and laughed after noticing that everyone was staring at him with their eyes protruding from their heads. I guess I have some explaining to do, huh? A purple dome formed around the group as Naruto slapped his palm to the ground and blurred through a set of hand seals before anyone could respond with a yes or no. This caused several seal kanji to spread out on the ground around them. The dome and the kanji disappeared after a moment. Privacy seal, just to make sure none of Zabuza's associates are listening in. For now I'll keep things short, but I promise to tell you all the full story when we get home. I should have already told you all, but that's behind us now. Naruto paused, closed his eyes, and then opened them again, revealing his Rinnegan. Everyone looked perplexed for a moment before Naruto made the decision to clarify. When they saw his newly changed eyes, everyone in the group almost passed out. My eyes are said to be the eyes of the Raikudu Sennin himself. They're the highest evolution of the Sharingan. By simply having these eyes, I am granted control over all elements, including the sub-elements. There's a long list of things they can do, such as control over gravity, the ability to absorb chakra, and even the ability to defy death if I'm willing to pay the price. Naruto stopped here once more as his eyes started to sparkle. Sasuke instantly levitated a few inches into the air as Naruto shifted his gaze to him. After holding him there for a while, Naruto gently sat him down again. I am right now one of the strongest shinobi in the village based on the power of my eyes alone, and in my prime I was hailed as the strongest shinobi in the entire world. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I was thrown back in time 5 years, to the day we graduated. I retained my memories and the knowledge of all my abilities, but didn't and still don't have the chakra control or capacity to use them all. Like I said, I'll explain better after this mission, just know that I'm on par with you right now, Kakashi Sensei. They all sat there, stunned, staring at Naruto. It was a bit much to disclose that the class's deceased last member was, in fact, a future hero who was reputed to be the strongest shinobi to have ever lived. The first to recover from his shock was Kakashi. Every part of me says not to believe you, I just want to laugh and pass it off as a prank, but after seeing the eyes in person, I can't believe it. Does anyone else know about this? Then he replied, just you three and Hokage. Gigi. I've kept all of this a secret because I didn't know how people would take it. Ideally I would have waited until I was back to nearly my full power to reveal my true powers, but the circumstance kinda calls for it now. Sasuke emerged from his shock and surveyed Naruto, who was now radiating a sense of power that he had only seen once, during the battle between Kakashi and Zabuza. So all this time you've been hiding your true abilities. This is so hard to believe, but like Kakashi Sensei said, we witnessed your power firsthand. The others nodded in agreement as Hinata stated, N. Naruto.kun, we're not angry that you hid your powers from us. I'm sure you had good reasons. I'm just glad you trust us enough to tell us. What's important right now is that we get ready for Zabuza and the Hunter. Nin. Sounds like you're ready, Naruto, but I have a few things in mind to teach Hinata and Sasuke. Kakashi returned to the subject. After Naruto nodded, Kakashi went on. Everyone nodded at their assignments before Kakashi pulled Sasuke aside and Naruto started teaching Hinata the Kazekiri no Jutsu. Sasuke, I want to teach you a couple of lightning jutsu so that you can support me. With water as his primary element, Zabuza will be susceptible to any lightning jutsu that you can hit him with. Hinata, I want to teach you a water jutsu mainly for defensive purposes. It will come in handy while defending the bridge builder. Tazuna spent a few hours in the clearing before coming outside prepared to start working on the bridge. Naruto left a clone to instruct Hinata after agreeing to accompany him. XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX training, they had spent the week with Naruto keeping an eye on the bridge builder. They had finally reached the day when Naruto promised Zabuza's return. Before the group departed for the bridge with Tazuna in tow, Naruto made 10 shadow clones and concealed them inside the house. Everyone saw how dense the fog was throughout the area as they got closer to the bridge. As the group continued to make their way to the bridge, Kakashi remarked, "Looks like he is here already. Everyone be ready, they're probably waiting on us." When they finally got there, they discovered all of Tazuna's helpers lying on the ground, either unconscious or dead. "Well Zabuza, it appears you didn't die after all. No matter, I wasn't lying when I said that your future is death," Kakashi said through the haze. From somewhere in the mist, Zabuza answered, "It's been a while, Kakashi. I came back to prove you wrong. I won't leave here today until the bridge builder is dead." 5 Zabuzas, each with a sword ready to strike, surrounded the group as soon as he finished speaking. Before he crashed into the water and fell back to the bridge, one of the Zabuza clones remarked, "I see you brought the kids back again. It's a shame that they're gonna die here too." Just before he slashed across another clone's chest, sending him back into the water, another clone glanced in time to see Sasuke leap away from the now dead clone. While Naruto merely waved his hand and blasted the final clone with a wave of fire, Hinata leapt forward and swiftly dispatched another 2 of them with her Juyuken. The clones were all dispelled before they even had a chance to attack. Zabuza, who was still hidden in the mist, half laughed and remarked, "Impressive for a bunch of brats. Hey Haku, looks like they might actually give you a run for your money." The hunter.nin, now known as Haku, hurried over to the group and said, "We shall see about that Zabuza, Sama." As he and Sasuke hurried off to the side in the direction of Zabuza, Kakashi exclaimed, "Everyone, you know your assignment, now move." Naruto was taken aback by Haku's speed despite knowing what to anticipate. Haku swiftly moved between them before flicking his wrist to create multiple ice senbon and sending them in Naruto and Hinata's direction. In response, Hinata slammed her palms on the floor and swiftly went through some hand seals, launching a wall of water upward to obstruct the needles. "Suijin. Suijin Heki!" exclaimed Hinata upon finishing. Haku was irritated that they had stopped his attack, but he had to quickly put the idea out of his mind when a lightning bolt pierced the water wall. As it went by his head, he dropped and rolled sideways, barely avoiding the lightning. He started going through hand seals after making a quick correction. He exclaimed, "Hisatsu Hyoso," as a number of ice spears shot out of the ground surrounding the 2 genin. As Naruto anticipated it, he grabbed Hinata, lowered himself to a knee, and touched the ground with his hand. A wall of rock erupted around them both as soon as he was down, halting the ice spears. "Doden. Doryuheki." Unflinching, Haku pulled out a few senbon to attempt a close quarters assault. He ran to Naruto, but he never got there before Hinata blocked his path and struck Haku's left arm multiple times with Juyuken. Naruto then sprang into action, slamming his foot into Haku's face, breaking his mask, and sending him flying across the bridge. Zabuza yelled, "Haku, stop playing around or we're going to lose this fight," as he and Kakashi got into combat. Without faltering in the heat of the moment, Hinata stated bluntly, "You should surrender now. I've disabled your left arm. You're at a disadvantage now. You can't even perform any more jutsu." With one-handed hand seals, Haku ran back towards the genin and said, "Allow me to correct you please." The genin felt the temperature drop a few degrees, and he slid to a stop after finishing the hand seals. Haku exclaimed, "Makio Hyosho," as a number of mirrors surrounded him and the other 2 genin. Haku jumped into the nearest mirror, making his reflection appear in each mirror at the same time, and remarked, "This is my strongest technique. No one has ever seen it and lived to tell the tale. Now prepare to die." A dome of ice mirrors surrounded them, and Naruto and Hinata stood watch, each one reflecting an image of Haku. Haku yelled from what seemed to be everywhere in the dome. You cannot win this fight. This is my ultimate jutsu. No one has ever seen this technique and survived to tell the tale. I would rather not kill you, so why don't you just surrender? Naruto remained vigilant and answered, well, as much as I would prefer not to die, and I'd rather not kill you either, but we have a mission to accomplish. It seems we can't come to an agreement then. Our interests conflict with each other. I fight for my precious people, to fulfill Zabuza Sama's dreams. What do you fight for? Haku asked from every angle. I fight for my precious people as well. I fight to keep Hinata-chan safe, to ensure the safety of my entire village. What Gato has done for the people of this country is despicable, and you two are trying to destroy their only hope. That's what I fight for, to give these people a chance at a better life, Naruto said with conviction. Before he took out multiple senbon and leapt out of the mirror in the direction of the two genin, Haku remarked, I see. That is a valiant reason to fight, but unfortunately it interferes with Zabuza Sama's goal and I cannot allow that. I'm sorry, but I must kill you. When Haku flew past and threw the senbon at them, Naruto could hardly keep up with his speed because he didn't have his Rinnegan activated. He moved to block the senbon after quickly applying wind to his hands. Most of them were stopped by him, but a few got past his defense and stabbed Hinata and himself. As the needles poked them in different spots, both genin yelled in agony. As they turned to look around, they saw Haku suddenly reappearing in every mirror. See, you cannot defeat me. I'm impressed that you were able to follow me and block my attack as much as you did. Haku was speaking from the mirrors. Instead of responding, Naruto made a C shape with his hand to his mouth after aiming for a random mirror and blurring through a set of hand seals. Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu. He exclaimed as a stream of flames shot into the ice mirror from his mouth. He held the flames for a moment, then let them go, exposing the mirror to be undamaged. Naruto thought out loud, this chakra laced ice is indestructible, just as I suspected. Haku pulled out another handful of senbon and said, yes it is. Now can you see that you're outmatched and surrender so I don't have to kill you? Hinata nodded when Naruto said, not gonna happen. Hinata-chan, are you ready? After shaking his head in defeat, Haku leapt out of the mirror once more. However, this time, Naruto used his Rinnegan, which made it simple for him to follow the phony Hunter.nin. Swiftly evading the senbon, he caught Haku by the arm to prevent any more assault. As Naruto whipped his body around to Hinata, who intervened and gave Haku multiple Juyuken strikes, effectively rendering him incapable of fighting any longer, Haku thought, impossible, he stopped my attack, Zabuza Sama, I'm sorry but I failed you. Before Naruto chopped him in the back of the neck, rendering him unconscious. The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX exposed his Sharingan by lifting his headband and saying, "Zabuza, if you don't mind, I'm going to end this quickly. I have a mission to finish and that means you have to die." "You see, Kakashi, I don't think you can end it quickly. You know a shinobi isn't supposed to show their best technique repeatedly," replied Zabuza. "You should be honored, you're the only person to ever see this eye twice. I'm not so scared of you or that eye anymore. You should know that Haku is a bright lad, and he usually only has to see a technique once before he figures out how it works. He watched our last little skirmish and analyzed every move, and let me know how you work. I know now that your famous little eye can't actually see the future. You just played a trick on me with a bit of hypnosis and cheap genjutsu. So I came up with a solution to the problem," Zabuza said as the mist around them grew so thick that nobody was able to see anything. Kakashi kept his vigilance up and looked around the mist, thinking, what does he expect to accomplish here? I can't see anything, so I know he can't either. Out into the mist, Kakashi said, "What's your plan here, Zabuza? I know you can't see anything either." He received a laugh in return. From right behind Kakashi, Zabuza uttered, "Don't you know, Kakashi, I'm a master of silent killing. I can find and kill you just by the sounds of your breathing." Kakashi swiftly turned and used his kunai to block a slash from Zabuza's massive sword, slipping back a few feet from the impact. Sasuke swiftly performed a series of hand seals, taking advantage of Zabuza's distraction. Sasuke shouted, "Kaminari Tatsumaki," as he reached out and threw his palm in Zabuza's direction, sending a twisted stream of lightning that caused Zabuza to leap back and vanish into the mist. Kakashi thought, where did he go now? Where will he attack next? Tazuna, before vanishing from his position and resurfacing in front of Tazuna as he was about to be slashed across the side. He was mostly shielded by his flak jacket, but the attack still caused a cut on his side. Then Zabuza laughed and vanished back into the mist, saying, "How can you possibly win, Kakashi? You can't even see me." As he took out a scroll and wiped some of the blood from his side onto it, Kakashi remarked, "There are more than one way to skin a cat, Zabuza." As he performed a series of seals while holding the scroll, he concluded, "It's time to end this." Kachiyose. Doden. Suiga no Jutsu. A great puff of smoke emerged from the scroll, and he tossed it to the ground. After a brief period of inaction, there was a grunt of pain coming from somewhere in the mist, followed by the sound of multiple dogs growling. The mist then dissipated, revealing Zabuza standing with multiple ninken attached to various body parts, holding him in place. "Zabuza, your ambition was too great. You wanted to overthrow and kill the Mizukage, but for that you needed money and to avoid the hunter.nin. It's for that reason that you attached yourself to a piece of shit like Gato, causing your path to cross mine. My mission is to protect this bridge builder. He is the courage of this country. This bridge he's building is their hope. A real shinobi wouldn't try destroy that," Kakashi said as he performed a set of hand seals, resulting in his right hand being covered in lightning chakra. All around him, the chakra was wildly dancing around his hand and shooting to the ground, making a noise that sounded like multiple birds chirping simultaneously. Zabuza screamed as he fought to break free of the dogs, "I don't give a damn about any of that. I fight for my own ideals and I'll keep on doing that." Zabuza gave Kakashi a glare when he said, "I'll give you one more chance to surrender." Finally, he pulled his arm back and began to run in Zabuza's direction, saying, "Then you leave me no choice. You're far too dangerous to let loose. Your future is death." The code XXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXXX when he was startled awake by a loud screeching sound. He noticed Hinata by Naruto's side, watching over him. He turned to see Kakashi standing a few feet away, lightning dancing around his hand, and Zabuza bound by multiple ninkin. He questioned, "Why did you not kill me?" "Because I know you have a good heart and we're only trying to complete your mission. You were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time," replied Naruto. Haku hung his head low and said, "You should have killed me. I'm useless to Zabuza Sama now. I'm just a broken tool." "That's not true. You are a talented shinobi, much more than just a tool. You need to see the bigger picture," replied Naruto. Just as Haku was about to respond, he saw Kakashi begin to approach Zabuza Sama, Haku exclaimed, leaping to his feet and hurtling toward them. With his Rinnegan eyes shining brightly, Naruto held out his right palm to Haku and said, "Bansho, Tenin." One moment, Haku was sprinting as quickly as he could in an attempt to intercept the attack and save Zabuza's life, and the next, an unidentified force stopped him in his tracks. He cried out, "No! Zabuza Sama!" as he was dragged back toward Naruto. When he heard him yell, Zabuza turned to face him, giving Haku a look he had never seen before, a mix of pride and grief. Observing Zabuza's expression, Haku was fully aware of his emotions. He was sorry that Haku had taken his life, but he was proud of everything that he had achieved. Zabuza's eyes rolled back in his head as Kakashi's lightning covered hand pierced his chest a mere second after they made eye contact. Withdrawing his arm, Kakashi said, "Chidori." Zabuza's lifeless body fell to the ground. Haku, staring at his lifeless form, muttered in a broken tone, "Zabuza Sama, I'm sorry I was a useless tool, unable to help you in the end. Well, it looks like Christmas came early this year. Now that Zabuza is dead, I won't have to pay him, as if I ever was in the first place. At least he did his job in weakening you enough so I could finish this fight," said a raspy voice at the end of the crossing. When they turned, everyone saw that Gato was encircled by an army of at least 100 armed bandits. "I'll kill you, you bastard. You sent us on this mission knowing that Zabuza Sama would be killed," Haku exclaimed as she started to run again, this time without Naruto stopping her. "Naturally, all I had to do was for him to make these shinobi sufficiently weak for me to murder them." As his thugs moved forward and drew their weapons, several charged towards Haku, expecting an easy kill because he was clearly injured. "Even if he survived, I would have killed him. Nuke.nin are so expensive," Gato said with a laugh. "Men, kill them all." Before several spikes of ice shot out of the ground and impaled all of them, killing the group that attacked her, Haku met the mercenaries and made one of his injured arms make some hand seals. She pushed forward and did the same with another group before the remaining thugs started to back off. "Just hold it there, we're sick of your despotism, Gato. We must reclaim our nation now." A man brandishing a crossbow yelled as he and a number of other citizens approached and blocked Gato's escape. They all fired their weapons, eliminating a number of thugs as Haku charged into the fray and used his ice to eliminate more. After a few minutes, only Haku and Gato were left on the bridge, though Haku was seriously injured. Gato was too afraid to move as Haku hobbled toward him, his face lifeless. "You betrayed us and killed Zabuza." "Sama," Haku said softly, drawing out a single senbon, "you must die for that. I'll give you anything you want, so please wait, land, women, money," Gato shouted as he retreated from the enraged shinobi. "You have already taken away the only thing I desire in this life. You little son of a bitch, you disgust me," Haku shouted as he hurled the senbon forward, striking Gato's forehead with ease, causing him to instantly fall backwards dead. Having finished his vendetta, Haku gave in to his wounds and fell to the ground. In order to evaluate the damage, Team 7 members hurriedly gathered around Haku. They examined his battered body and saw multiple deep cuts that were bleeding alarmingly quickly. Without a skilled medic nearby, which they lacked, they could have easily determined that the wounds would be fatal. "This is for the best, so don't worry about me. I have no purpose without Zabuza. Sama. I have no purpose anymore and I'm just a tool." Haku started coughing up blood and said in a weak voice, "This way, I'll be reunited with him in the afterlife. I apologize for all of this, Haku. I think we could have been friends in a different life. If only we hadn't crossed paths." As Haku grinned and coughed up blood one last time before closing his eyes for the last time, Naruto said in a melancholy tone, "I hope you find peace in the afterlife." "Well, folks, I guess this indicates that the mission was successful." The three genin nodded when Kakashi said, "We'll bury these two properly and then clean up this mess." Following the small funeral, the team went down to the bridge and cleaned up the mess left by the fight. They collected the bodies of Zabuza and Haku, carried them to a hill overlooking the bridge, and buried them both in a grave marked by a small rock. With the help of a few hundred Naruto clones, Tazuna and his team completed the bridge during the following week without any problems. By the time the bridge was finished, the entire village had gathered to greet the team and bid them farewell before they left to return to Konoha, leaving the villagers to rejoice over the new bridge and their hopeful recovery. "What will we call the bridge, Grandpa?" Inari glanced up at Tazuna and asked. "Well, the super great awesome Super Tazuna Bridge. What about it?" Tazuna answered before Tsunami gave her a slap across the back of the head. "The Great Naruto Bridge. What about it? Because everyone was indirectly motivated to fight for our rights by Naruto," Tsunami stated. "Yes, that sounds fantastic." Inari gave a cheer. "This bridge is now called the Great Naruto Bridge, so it seems like a good plan." Everyone started to applaud as Tazuna shouted. The trip back to Konoha and the subsequent weeks were uneventful. Team 7 returned and gave their report to the Hokage before receiving a 3-day vacation to recover from the A-rank mission. During the small break, Naruto honored his word and told his comrades along with Hiruzen his entire story and the extent of his powers. The other members of Team 7 were further shocked as Naruto continued his story. Sasuke was a bit upset that his future self defected from the village and ended up dead by Madara's hand, but was kind of excited to know he became almost as strong as Naruto, being labeled as one of the strongest shinobi ever to live. Hinata was exited and eventually fainted when she discovered that during the war, Naruto confessed his love to her and they became a couple, though she was also disappointed that Naruto died, and went back in time before they were able to make anything of the relationship. She was happy that in this timeline Naruto confessed the truth 5 years before the war. She of course reciprocated the feelings, and they became an official couple once again. Kakashi, like Sasuke, was intrigued by the fact that he was a major asset in the final battle against Madara, also becoming a shinobi of legend. The aged Hokage took the news rather well, as he already knew most of the story. It also helps that over 70 years alive and being hailed as the god of shinobi meant that he had seen pretty much everything possible. Everyone left after the group discussion and spent the remainder of their vacation resting and enjoying themselves, but also fitting in some training to keep in shape. They returned to their duties after the vacation and resumed team training and a few missions for the next few weeks before Hiruzen finally announced the Chunin exams. After being informed of the high likelihood of an invasion during the finals, all of the Jonin Sensei trained their students extra hard in the weeks before the exams, and all of the rookie Genin teams, including Team 9, were nominated and accepted to take the tests. After meeting at their usual training ground, Team 7 walked to the academy together, where they saw Rock Lee being beaten up in front of the Genjutsu room. Naruto realized that Rock Lee was lying, so Team 7 calmly passed him and went up to the 3rd floor to take the exam. At last, the first part of the exams arrived. Shortly after entering the room, Kabuto went up to the group of new genin who had all gathered and started chatting among themselves. Naruto had to control himself to prevent the traitor from killing him right away, but he remained calm as he continued his speech about taking the exams 7 times and having the information on everyone. The Auto Genin then attacked Kabuto, but this time Naruto subtly shifted the gravity around him, causing him to take a direct hit from Dosu's melody arm, knocking him to the ground and causing him to start vomiting blood. His glasses were shattered, and the sound waves caused blood to pour from his nose and ears. When Kabuto eventually stopped vomiting and started to recover a little, he thought, I know I moved in time to dodge that. What the hell happened? It's like I tripped or something. Naruto stifled a laugh at the outcome of his manipulation, which was far superior to the original. A loud voice screamed over the room before he had a chance to reflect on his success. Shut the hell up, you worthless bastards. My name is Morino Ibiki, and I'll be the proctor for the first round of the exams. The voice shouted as everyone turned to face the tall man wearing a long black trench coat and a Konoha Hite.8. He had multiple scars on his face and looked frightening overall. There is no fighting in this section of the test. Auto Genin. If you irritate me, I'll send you jerks packing before the test even begins. Come on over, get a number, and take the appropriate seat. We'll distribute the tests once everyone is seated. Do not yet turn them over. Before Ibiki started talking again, the Chunin assistants distributed all of the tests, and all of the Chunin candidates went to the front to get their numbers before settling into their seats. This exam will be a written test with 10 questions. It will be a subtraction-based system with 1 point awarded for each question. You begin with 10 points, and you lose 1 point for each incorrect response. It was then that Naruto realized he was sitting next to Sakura. This is a team exam, and you will pass or fail based on the combined total of your team's points for a total possible 30 points. Also, these fine Chunin that are here assisting me will be keeping an eye on you, and each time you fuck up, namely by cheating, you will lose 2 points. The candidates were all looking around at their teammates, wondering how they would do. You and your team will fail if you are caught 5 times and your point total is 0. Congratulations, you can start now and you have 1 hour. Ibiki said as everyone flipped their tests and began. Most of the genin quickly noticed that the questions were very hard, something that may even be difficult for a Chunin to answer. Naruto knew the purpose of this exam but still discreetly looked around to check on everyone. He saw how everyone was cheating in their own various ways, except Sakura, who was just book-smart enough to answer the questions. He saw that Hinata and Sasuke were using their respective dojutsu to copy the answers from the placed Chunin. During the next 45 minutes several teams were caught cheating too much and disqualified. Finally Ibiki stepped forward and got everyone's attention before speaking again. Alright maggots, it's time for the final question. This is a unique query. A little nervous about this special question, the genin once more glanced around. Would anyone like to quit before we begin this question? As he examined the anxious applicants, Ibiki asked with a sly grin. Why would we give up right now? Since we've come this far, we won't give up, one of the genin shouted out. Ibiki's smile widened as he went on. This question is unique because I'm glad you asked. You will be banned from the test for life if you decide to take it and answer this question incorrectly. He concluded, but as he looked around, he saw that the genin was thinking about what he had said. A couple raised their hands, and their teams were led away. At last, another genin said, how can you say that? There are people here who have taken the test before and are still here. I was never unfortunate enough to serve as a proctor for them. Genin quit and his team left, and then a few more quit before Ibiki was satisfied that there were no more quitters and he resumed. Is everyone sure that they wish to take the chance? Ibiki said. All right, you all pass, he said, observing that nobody was attempting to leave the room. At the turn of events, several genin were screaming and swearing, demanding an explanation before Ibiki satiated their demands. This test was designed to assess your ability to gather information. As a Chunin, you will lead your team and be expected to fill in the gaps in the information needed to finish the mission. Your ability to continue on a mission with inadequate or no information, even when the odds are against you, was tested in the final question. Occasionally, Anko was standing in front of the banner when Ibiki heard a loud crash as a black ball burst through the window and grew into a banner that was hung from the roof by Kanai. Hello maggots. I'll be the incredibly attractive but sadly unmarried Anko Midarashi. You're early, Anko. Damn it. I wasn't finished yet. A vein appeared on Ibiki's forehead, and he screamed. As she scratched the back of her head and laughed, Anko said, heh sorry, damn Ibiki, there's a lot of genin left in here, you're slacking. This year is a promising bunch, what can I say? Ibiki grinned in response. Oh well, fewer than half of them will remain after my test. Maggots, you heard me. For the second section of the test, I serve as the proctor. I promise there won't be more than half of you when I'm done, so meet me tomorrow morning at Training Ground 44 in 20 minutes. Before she drove the nail in the coffin, all the genin appeared somewhat alarmed after she described the second exam. Now get the hell out of my sight or the second exam will seem like a walk in the park. All of the genin leapt from their seats and fled as she yelled. Anko smiled and winked as she said, "Does my heart good to scare the shit out of the maggots?" Before leaping out the window she had entered and making her way to the Forest of Death. After 15 minutes, Anko and all of the Chunin hopefuls were standing outside the massive chain link fence that encircled a shadowy looking forest that was marked with warning signs. Everyone gazed anxiously at the forest, and they could hear the savage sounds of animals roaring and growling from within. Now then, this happy-looking place here is Training Ground 44, otherwise known as the Forest of Death, and you'll soon find out why it's called that. As some Chunin assistants started handing out forms to the crowd, Anko remarked, "Now I'll need each of you to sign one of these forms and then bring them back to me." "For what purpose are these used?" an individual from Suna Genin inquired. Before the Suna Genin decided he was okay being a Genin and he and his team were led away, Anko responded with a savage smile, "They are liability waivers, to release Konoha of any liability if and when you get killed in this forest. One person from each team will bring the forms to me after you have all signed them. One of these scrolls is worth 3 signed waivers. Scrolls come in 2 varieties. Heaven and Earth. You have 5 days to carry one of each of the scrolls to the tower in the middle of the forest in order to pass my test." The Genin suddenly realized that if they had to steal a scroll from the other teams, only half of them could pass this test at best. You must gather both scrolls by any means necessary. Killing is acceptable during this test section. Your starting gate will be the number you see on your scroll. Good luck, maggots. Arrive there and wait for the signal to begin. As each team headed to their gate, Anko remarked, "All right, guys, let's move quickly because this forest isn't very good. I need to do something, but I'll wait until we've had a scroll. We'll take the first team we locate, Sasuke taking the lead, Hinata taking the backseat." Before the gate opened and a horn blared through the forest, indicating the beginning of the second exam, Naruto said, getting nods from his teammates.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.